Hi, I'm Olivia and welcome to Connecting the Dots in Early Childhood Education. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to make transitions slightly easier for our little ones. All right, let's get started. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to make transitions slightly easier for our youngest learners. Transitions can be incredibly challenging in general education classrooms, in integrated classrooms, and in self-contained classrooms, and even with your children at home. But there's good news. There's things that we can do actively as educators and parents to support little ones in transitioning more smoothly. My first tip is make all transitions look as similar as possible. In other words, have transition routines that work for all parts of your day. We're going to talk about a few of these ideas throughout the video, but things like using visual schedules, implementing timers, using familiar songs. The more familiar and routine transitions feel for little ones, the easier and more smoothly they will go. Trust me. One of my first tips in terms of making these transition routines is to utilize verbal warnings. For example, if you're getting ready to clean up an activity, maybe it's center time, and then you're going to be transitioning to mealtime, children need fair warning that it's almost time to clean up. You may want to go around the classroom and tell your friends, in 10 minutes, we're cleaning up. In 5 minutes, we're cleaning up. In 2 more minutes, we're cleaning up. And then cleanup can start. You may even want to sing some sort of song while you're cleaning up, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in the video. In addition to verbal warnings, in my classroom when I was teaching, I also used a visual stoplight like the one you see on this slide. During center time play, for example, I had a clip on green. Green means go, and we're playing and having so much fun. But when it was almost time to clean up, when I was giving the 10, the 5, and the 2-minute warning, I would have one of my students move the clip to yellow and walk around the classroom to show students it's on yellow. We're starting to slow down and we're starting to think about cleaning up and transitioning. Then when it was time to actually start cleaning up, I had another student move a clip to the red, which meant that it was time to stop playing and it was time to start cleaning up. And as children saw this clip moving to red, we began singing our cleanup song. Verbal warnings and even visual cues can really help children in preparing for a transition so that it doesn't feel so sudden and scary. After all, if a child is engaged in an activity that they absolutely love, it's going to feel really disappointing and scary for us as educators or parents to tell them, okay, this is over now, time to do something else. The more warning they have and the more prepared they feel, the easier it will go. My next tip is visual schedules. Visual schedules are a huge thing in the early childhood world, and I'm sure you all know that. However, let's talk a little bit more about how to use visual schedules. First of all, the visual schedule should be at the children's eye level. This means that when a child is standing, they should be able to clearly see the schedule, whether it goes from left to right or up to down. They should be able to see it, manipulate it, touch it, understand it. If the visual schedule is up too high in the classroom or is in an obscure place where children don't see it or visit, it doesn't really serve a function. Visual schedules need to be functional in order to be effective. Again, more than just having a visual schedule, you need to use it. What I mean by this is oftentimes we may set up a visual schedule of our day, but we may forget to have students revisit it. We may forget to redirect students to looking at it. We may forget to have students moving the clip or whatever method you use so that children understand what's next in the day. Visual schedules need to be accessible for children, and they also need to be used consistently. Consistency is key because when you have a visual schedule, it helps children to understand the routine of the day and the flow. Therefore, when you're getting ready to transition, they can see what's coming next and when they may have the opportunity to revisit their preferred activity later on during the day. You may have visual schedules for your full day, of course. I think most early childhood classrooms do have that. However, you also may have to have small parts of your day have their own schedule as well. In my classroom, again, I was a self-contained early childhood special needs teacher, and my students really struggled with routine and with transitions. So while we did have challenges transitioning from morning meeting to center time and from center time to lunchtime, we also had challenges within activities themselves. So, for example, when students came into the classroom, they had the routine of putting away their things in their cubby, going to sign in at our sign-in station so that we knew that they were present for the day, and then moving to the table to do some table toys before we started breakfast. This activity or routine that they had each day was too complex for them to grasp initially. And so what I did was, near the front of my door in my classroom, I actually had a visual schedule that showed students putting things in their cubbies, signing in at the sign-in station, and then playing with table toys. This way, when children weren't sure of what to do, or maybe they were feeling resistant to go and sign in or to go and put away their things in their cubby, we were able to redirect them to this visual schedule that was a supplement to our daily schedule. Of course, they could see in the daily schedule arrival time, but that just felt too ambiguous to them. I had to create an even smaller schedule that just broke down our morning arrival routine. So again, visual schedules are amazing when we use them and they're functional. Again, in order to be effective, they have to be functional and used consistently by the adults in the classroom as well as the children. Another fun tip that I used when I was teaching was we would do a final countdown. Okay, friends, we are cleaning up in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we would start a cleanup song or a transition song. Or maybe during a meal time, I might say, okay, friends, breakfast time is all done in 10, 9, 8, 7, and the whole countdown. This was really fun because it gave a really immediate warning of when we were getting ready to transition activities. And it also was great because it kind of supported students in understanding the sequence and counting backwards, which was like a bonus. Again, this is worth trying. This is like a fun tip that I used for a couple of years, but it may not always work. For example, I had one student who this countdown increased his anxiety and he would begin tantruming and throwing himself on the floor during the countdown. And so in that case, that was not effective. But oftentimes a countdown like this is really, really effective when you're getting ready to switch activities. Fun song. So I've alluded to some fun cleanup songs and transition songs and things like that. But I honestly feel that the best way to make a transition song is to make it up. Make it up, do something fun, make it to a tune of a song that students enjoy. And I always tell teachers, and I always had to remind myself of this as an educator as well, we don't have to be professional singers. Children, the wonderful and beautiful thing about children is they don't judge us if our singing voice is not that great. Implementing songs, though, is very powerful when we sing them together in the classroom. Center time is over, center time is over, center time is over, now it's time for lunch. Make it up, do a fun tune, figure out what works for your students. But the power of song is incredibly powerful in early childhood, trust me, especially during transitions. Positive reinforcement. When students are transitioning well, we want to reinforce and praise them for doing that. Nice work cleaning up. Awesome job coming to sit down for breakfast. Again, you may need to use a tangible social activity reinforcer depending on the child. For example, when they go to sit down at circle time, you may have to provide them with a stuffed animal. That's a transition toy for them. Or when they go and sit down at the breakfast table, you may have to sit them near preferred peers or preferred adults to reinforce that behavior. If you have more questions about positive reinforcement, you can look at my video all about reinforcers. I did want to touch on a couple of things that I don't personally recommend. I know plenty of educators use them, but I wanted to talk a little bit about why I don't love these two methods of transitioning, especially for little ones. Loud timers and bells. As a self-contained special ed teacher, a lot of my students had sensory sensitivities. So a loud noise was very scaring, jarring, and anxiety provoking for them. And so it wasn't functional in my classroom. And while in your classroom in general, children may not have those reactions, you still may have one or two students who feel alarmed and scared when they hear that timer or they hear that bell. And that's not going to support you in transitioning smoothly in the classroom. Similarly, flicking the lights on and off is very visually scary, and it's also not the best thing if your children have sensory sensitivities. Those dark and light lights may really bother them. And so we want transitions to feel predictable, safe, and smooth. And so as much as possible, I would avoid using loud noises and flickering lights on and off. And one thing I just want to remind everyone of is be creative. Transitions can be tricky, and from year to year, from your group of students to your group of students, you may have to change up your routines to figure out what works. Do not give up. Transitions are especially hard at the beginning of the school year or when you get a new student, because children really don't have any idea of what their routines and what their day is going to look like. So at the beginning of the year, or if you get a new student, I really recommend spending a good chunk of time going over those systems you have in place, like your visual schedules, so that students begin to understand how they can figure out what's going to happen during the school day. Again, it takes time. Your transitions may be really rough on day one, and it may take you a few months for children to get into the routine of things. And if something doesn't work, reflect and adjust. Reflect on what is working, what's not working, why isn't that working, and what can I do differently? You got this. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. To find out more, please visit our website and all of our social media accounts. The handles and links can be found at the slide at the end of the video. And don't forget to check out our Call a Coach service, which can be found on our website. Call a Coach allows you to get some quality one-on-one support.